that Canada is now in free fall, politically, economically, and socially. And folks, Alberta is breaking free. But here's the kicker. Saskatchewan, Manitoba, even rural BC, they're waiting in line to follow. And don't forget Quebec.
Alberta has been victim of the unwritten policy of the East. Screw the West. We'll take the rest.
Canada is in shock as the Western provinces finally waved the red flag and flat out said negotiations are over. Ottawa has no one to blame but itself. After years of being milked and ignored, people are so fed up they'd sacrifice anything just to break free.
This is the West breaking off, and Ottawa knows once the dam breaks, there's no patching it back together.
You know what's wild? For years, people kept saying Western discontent was just noise, just some cranky Albertans whining about Ottawa. But now, it's not whispers anymore. It's a roar. Ottawa can't pretend not to hear it because it's exploding out in the open. And here's the kicker. It's not just Alberta crying in a corner anymore.
When the provincial government seems to be butting heads more on a fairly regular basis with the national government, I think Canadians pick up on that.
A new poll actually showed that over 50% of Canadians, yeah, people outside Alberta, get why Alberta would want to leave. Imagine that. Half the country is saying, yeah, fair enough, Alberta, we see your point. That's not fringe. That's mainstream empathy.
Canada started to collapse before our very eyes. Alberta has just taken the first official step to break from Canada, and the shockwaves, they're already rattling Ottawa, Wall Street, and yes.
Now let's get into why Alberta wants out, because honestly, when you look at the numbers, it's hard not to laugh at how badly they're treated. Alberta isn't some sidekick in Confederation. Alberta is the engine, the economic powerhouse. The province pumps out 4.2 million barrels of oil every single day. That's more than several OPEC countries combined. Just let that sink in. And that oil and gas sector isn't pocket change. It feeds around $70 billion a year into Canada's GDP. So Alberta isn't a small player. It's literally carrying the country on its back while Ottawa treats it like dirt.
And threaten our energy security. Enough of their screw the West, we'll take the rest mentality.
And then there's equalization, or as Albertans call it, the biggest scam running. Over the last 40 to 50 years, between $540 and $600 billion have been siphoned out of Alberta to Ottawa. Year after year, that's about 20 to 22 billion sucked away. Break it down, and it's basically $5,000 per Albertan per year vanishing east. Imagine what Alberta could do with that money. Better schools, better hospitals, maybe even cutting taxes. But nope, it's used to fund places that never stop voting Liberal. No wonder people are mad.
For such large and powerful economies like Ontario, Quebec, BC, or Alberta to be subsidizing one another. That was never the intent of equalization, and it needs to end.
And if you think equalization is bad, let's talk pipelines, because this is where Ottawa really shows its genius. Projects like Keystone XL, Northern Gateway, and Energy East, gone, all canceled. And those weren't small projects. If those had gone through, Alberta would be pumping an extra 2.5 million barrels of oil per day. At today's prices, that's about $55 billion in GDP Alberta's missing out on every year, plus another $17 billion in provincial revenue. That's money that could have transformed Alberta's economy, but nope, Ottawa decided to burn it instead.
This isn't just about Alberta. What's happening up north could tear Canada apart from both the West and the East.
And of course, Ottawa wrapped all this in its favorite thing, regulations. Bill C-69, nicknamed the No More Pipelines Act, is basically a giant screw you to Alberta. Add in carbon taxes stacked on top of everything, and investment just dried up. In fact, in the last decade alone, over $500 billion in global capital walked away from Alberta's energy sector. $500 billion gone. Tens of thousands of jobs? Gone. Families uprooted? Gone. And all because Ottawa insists on turning Alberta's lifeline into a political punching bag.
Alberta, Canada's energy superpower, has finally said enough. After years of being robbed by Ottawa, billions in oil wealth siphoned away, pipelines blocked, families betrayed,
But it's not just economics, it's culture too. Alberta's values are grit, self-reliance, family, faith, small businesses, entrepreneurship, the classic Western vibe. Meanwhile, Ottawa is all bureaucracy, entitlement, and government handouts. So of course people feel like they don't belong in the same country. And it's not just older folks grumbling anymore. The younger generation is looking around and saying, wait, what future do we even have here if Ottawa keeps blocking everything? That resentment is growing fast, and when young people get on board, you know the movement isn't going away.
Alberta has made the formal break. They've crossed the line, and Ottawa is reeling. The Canadian establishment that for decades milked Alberta dry just got the shock of their lives.
Now, Saskatchewan might not get as much attention, but make no mistake, it's standing right there with Alberta. And the threshold to force a referendum in Saskatchewan? It's laughably small. They only need 125,000 signatures. That's it. In a province where frustration is boiling, that number is not hard to reach. Campaigns are already in motion, and if Alberta jumps, Saskatchewan isn't going to sit back twiddling its thumbs.
Alberta is not going to be alone. Saskatchewan is right behind them. Manitoba isn't far off. And in the rural British Columbia, away from Vancouver's cosmopolitan bubble, support for a referendum is skyrocketing. So if Alberta jumps, others are going to follow too. Now think about what that means. This isn't just about one province walking away.
Polling already shows that more than 40% of voters in Saskatchewan support holding a referendum today. That's nearly half the province ready to put separation on the ballot, and they've got the resources to back up their argument too. Saskatchewan produces 460,000 barrels of oil every day. On top of that, their exports in wheat, potash, and uranium feed directly into the US market. They're not dependent on Ottawa, they're already deeply tied into international trade.
Why should Alberta stay in a country that replaces a bad leader with one that is even worse?
The offensive agenda that we have, whether it's emissions caps or net zero electricity regs, all generate from Mark Carney, who's been pushing that agenda for a long time.
But here's the problem for them. Federal policies keep jamming up the system. Carbon taxes are hammering farmers and oil producers. Endless project delays mean they can't get resources to market when the world is literally begging for them. And it's not just complaints anymore. Alberta and Saskatchewan are actually coordinating strategies. Their joint caucus meeting in Lloydminster wasn't a photo op. It was about plans, timelines, and legal moves to push the sovereignty agenda together. That's a playbook, not a publicity stunt.
That is 43% more than their fair share. And so what do they get in return? Lectures from Ottawa about dirty oil and environmental apocalypse.
Alberta's economic muscle and resentment, Saskatchewan's grassroots campaigns and resources. You start to realize this isn't just talk anymore. This is a coordinated movement with numbers, signatures, and momentum that Ottawa can't laugh off. The petitions are real, the polling is real, the frustration is real, and the strategies are real. And once one province pushes the button, the others aren't going to stay quiet.
Lectures from Ottawa about dirty oil and environmental apocalypse. Meanwhile, the very same provinces cash Alberta's checks.
When people talk about British Columbia, they usually imagine Vancouver, coffee shops, condo towers, and smug city politics. But outside that liberal bubble, in the interior, it's a totally different story. That's where the independence talk is getting louder. Forestry, mining, oil, gas. These industries are lifelines for small towns, and they've all been tied up, stalled, or killed off by Ottawa's endless red tape and veto culture. Imagine watching entire projects worth millions get strangled in regulations before they even start, while the people writing those rules sit thousands of kilometers away, sipping lattes and patting themselves on the back for saving the planet. That's the reality in interior BC. Communities are shrinking because of it. Families that lived off forestry or oil are packing up and leaving. You can walk through some of these towns and see it in real time. Businesses shuttered, schools with fewer kids, and locals muttering that Ottawa doesn't even know they exist. That kind of betrayal sticks. It's not just financial ruin, it's a cultural gut punch. People are asking why they should stay in a country that keeps gutting their livelihoods.
The government of Canada fails at negotiating with our biggest trading partner, while a strong Alberta is called names for doing what is necessary to ensure prosperity.
And here's the part Ottawa wasn't ready for. The youth. In places where you'd expect 20-somethings to be disconnected, they're actually fired up. Activists are noticing more and more young people saying independence might be the only path forward. The same generation that's supposed to be Instagram scrolling through apathy is suddenly talking about sovereignty over coffee breaks at Staples. That's new energy that Ottawa can't dismiss with the usual, "it's just old folks complaining."